Uh, um, well, I want you to enlighten me about something. I'm gonna bring it to you.
Enlighten you about what?
Mm. Are we recording?
Yeah, we are.
Okay. No.
Well, well, hold on, man. I'm still doing the intro.
Oh, okay.
You were so eager.
You asked the question.
You
You asked
see,
the question.
eager. Goodness, every week with this man, every week. What's up, everybody? Hello, old man.
How you doing, old man?
Goodness, just. Go ahead, man. Go ahead. You came.
Well,
You got on the call. You were just so ready and eager. What you got for us?
well, I want to talk about the difference between the grandmothers and and the mothers when I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give you some scenarios, and I want to see how the younger generation translates to now, and how maybe social media and things like that might have changed this narrative. All right, the grandmothers back when I grew up, and mothers, respect. They always got respect of the community, every other kid. So even if you had thugs out there, they respected the grandmothers and mothers.
Mm-hmm.
They could be sitting out there drinking and stuff, and a mother or a grandmother shows up, they hide the beers or they hide everything, whatever they're doing. And I'm talking about thugs, the hard ones back then. They just show total respect. Back then, the grandmothers, mothers used to feed the community. If they were playing at your house and it was time to eat, if they were there, they ate.
Mm-hmm.
The grandmothers back in the day, and mothers,
Mm-hmm.
when I was growing up, they carried themselves a certain way. You know, they had spirituality. They went to church.
Mm-hmm.
They're not dressing provocative and things like that.
Okay.
And that's just the start. How does that from back then? And I got more
Okay.
back then compared to now.
Well, I'm gonna say first of all, I don't know any grandmothers that are dressing like that because like that's not a that's more like the mothers and stuff like that in this era now. I don't really know a whole lot of grandmothers that are out there doing what you're speaking of. Secondly, wasn't most of the time like the family like all in the same house, or the grandmother was right down the street? Whereas
You know
now,
how it was.
I'm
How is it
asking
now?
you, wasn't your grandmother like
Yeah,
down the street or in the house, living in the
yeah.
house?
Down the street in the
But
house, got her own house.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying though. Like that's not a
Mhm.
thing now because a lot of people are moving away from their parents or whatever the case may be, depending on their situation. Um, and a lot of people typically end up minding their own business. We're in that stage of everybody minding their own business, and you can't tell me what to do unless you're my actual birth parent kind of situation, because everything has pretty much escalated to the point of if somebody else touches my child X, Y, and Z that I don't know, because I know what you're saying about the grandma, and then everybody on the block respect that's not happening now. Like they're not going to listen to an elderly lady coming out there trying to school. That's not going to happen. Like times have changed, and a lot of parenting has changed with those times. So that's not really a thing anymore, and more so due to the fact that families are more spread out now and not living as close as they may have been back in your era.
So you're saying because they're spread out that because a person is a grandmother or a older mother, it's not respected?
No, they're still respected, but I'm going off of what you're saying. You were saying like the grandmother coming out to the street and stuff like that. You're not seeing that now because most of the kids aren't like living in those communities. Like because now there's communities developed specifically for the elderly people. So you're not going to be having kids living in the same communities with the elderly folks. You do know like that is a you do see that, right? Like you
Well,
see
yeah,
not not even the elderly homes. I'm saying like actual communities for
right,
elderly
right.
people. So you're not going to
55 and older
right, you're not going to have
communities.
that anymore where the elderly person's on the block on the street and the kids are playing. You're not going to have that often because they're it's shifting more so to make housing available for those people that grew up in that era that might not have had the houses or whatever the case may be. I don't know what their situation may be, but that's where they're being pushed to is those communities where they have other people they can interact with and things like that.
So they
That's how I
distance
see it.
themselves from the youth.
Some may or
Now,
some
are the youth are pushing them out?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's a little bit of both, honestly.
Okay, so you said you don't see the grandmas and all that
I
stuff. What's the age limit of a grandmother? What's the starting age of a grandmother in your community?
in my what I think it would
The
be.
younger, the younger.
You're
Yeah.
talking about a grandma. Some of them may be in their 40s when they're a grandma. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like
That wasn't the norm.
I know that's not the norm, but I'm saying like
With us, when I was growing up, that
right,
was unheard of.
right. Some may be grandmas in their 40s. It just depends. I would say the median is still probably like maybe 50s still, but it may be getting lower.
50s.
Mhm.
That's an old grandmother. Today, back in the day, it was 60 and above, at least for a grandmother.
Right. Well, I mean,
Oh,
most of the people. So I'm just going off of what I see. Most of the people my age, right, are already like in having kids, kind of have a kids phase, things like that. So that would lead me to believe that most of their parents are in their 50s, typically, or in their 50s, maybe early to mid
well, they're in
50s.
their 50s, but they're not grandparents, though.
Yes, they are.
They're parents. The parents, yes, they should be in that age group.
No, 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 no,
But
no. What I'm
I,
saying is my friends who are like
Mhm,
in their 30s or whatever, having kids. So that means their parents
mhm.
the will be grandparents. Exact or yeah, grandparents. So the grandparents
If
are
they're
so my friends' parents are already grandparents at like
grandparents.
early to mid 50s.
Okay, okay, okay. But you know that number goes down a lot further than that.
Yeah. Yeah, just
So,
depending on where you're at and stuff like that.
that's right. That's right. So the the grandparents when I was growing up, that was unheard of.
Right.
And if you walk into a home, a young man walks into like let's say that they have the a girl, their daughter, their granddaughter, or daughter is walking into the home because you eat as a family, you at the table, and you say you're gonna bring your boyfriend over.
Hmm.
You can't walk in your house with your underwear showing. You ain't walking in the house with wearing a hat.
Hmm.
Today, they walk around in public with it.
Well,
I'm just saying,
parents are trying to
it's a
be
difference. It's respect. It's respect.
no, I
It's
understand
respect.
that, but parents are also trying to be more accepting instead of being because remember, like I said, parents are trying to be more accepting now. I truly believe my generation was the last generation of the push your head in the mud and whatever, oh put some dirt on it kind of thing, like that toughness and everything like that. Like my generation was the last of that. So we had that respect of when we meet somebody's parents is yes, yes, sir, no man, that kind of thing. Whereas
Yes, sir.
now,
No, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yes,
whereas
ma'am.
now the parents are the newer. I guess it would be my generation. I don't know. I'd
And
have to look
below.
into my being more accepting because there's so many more things now compared to Hey, you know where I'm going with. There's so many more things now in the world compared to what it was back then when you were my age. It wasn't a whole lot of different pronouns and everything like that that people wanted to be called by. Things were simpler back in your time, so we have to broaden. We have to
No,
broaden and be more accepting and more open to everything that is around us as far as my generation. So I think that leads to more people being who they want to be and not having to be respectful as much. I mean, depending on who you are and how you were raised, that's still debatable at that point. But I think that's
respect
where
is respect.
I think that's where it ends up going. It's like when you have the reins too loose, you end up having those issues potentially.
Is that a good thing? A bad thing? I look at it as a bad thing.
I
Old
mean,
school,
here's
I,
the thing: you
you
can't.
don't see the issues you have
Here's the
today
thing. Here's the thing. It
that
doesn't.
you.
Here's the thing. It doesn't matter if it's a good thing or bad thing. We're like this right now. Like you can do what you want in your household, but overall, as a society, a lot of us are handcuffed. Can't really do what you because then you're seen as some kind of way.
But see, that's one thing with the old generation. When I grew up, they the the grandparents and the mothers back
Mm-hmm.
then, and even the grandfathers as well. But they're usually working, taking care of the home, and doing what they're supposed to do as the man of the house.
Right.
Even back then, it was no leeway with that. Respect was due.
No, I understand that, but
It
you don't have transgender people, coming to visit your kids or stuff like
oh,
that.
they were there then, but they knew where
Jay,
things lie.
Jay, don't even start. You know good and well that grandma would be sitting there underneath her breath, all kinds of.
Not underneath her breath. She would say it.
Oh,
See, that's
either
the
way,
difference. They
either
had
way.
no filter. They had
I
no
mean, either way, it's
filter.
still the same
And
thing.
nobody could say anything about it. What you do is you take it like a man or a woman.
Right,
You
because
take
they're
whatever grandma or
because they're
mother
not
said.
they're not used to that. That's what I'm saying. But now we have more of that in our society, so everybody has to be cognizant of what's going on and be accepting of everything that they may encounter in their life or whatnot. Whereas in your era, in your old, in your grandparents' era, it's not like that.
The best era.
Everything
The
everything
best
was
era.
pretty much
Yeah,
black and white. Everything.
that's right. Is a right and a wrong.
Yeah, now we have gray. So we have a lot of gray now.
And where are we going with the gray? I'm not going to have you. You can't answer the life. The world's. You can't solve the world's problems in that gray area. But think about this too. What about marriage?
Hmm.
Most of the grandmothers and mothers in my era, they either were married or widowed.
Hmm.
What we got now? What are your generation below? What we got?
Well, I mean,
What,
we
what, what's,
have
what's, what's,
we
what's,
have
what's the norm?
a norm. A norm is
Yeah.
still the whole getting married thing, but we have it's still the norm. However, there's more opportunities for the opposite gender to do, to exceed in careers, and there's more doors open for them compared to where it was in your era and things like that, where they may have had a little sliver they can go through. Now the door is wide open for them to pursue what they want to pursue. However, with that, there are potential downfalls with that where you can be consumed by your career and not, want to have a family or whatever the case may be. So with that still goes into that being more accepting, and that goes into that whole bubble of things changing. It's not that black and white anymore. Like I said, we're in the gray area where we have a lot more to be cognizant of.
Okay, so that gray area um, is the reason for increased violence out in with the youth
Mm.
being violent, more violent, increased disrespect this blatant disrespect, swearing, drinking, smoking,
Well,
underwear
I don't
showing.
think that's
I'm just saying, all
uh
these things is that in that gray area.
no. All that stuff is just I attribute it to growing up because I'm pretty sure you can sit
Not
there.
growing up, not growing up,
I
or
can
growing up.
growing up. I'm sitting there saying when you go through that adolescence phase, that teenager phase where you're rebellious. So you're gonna sit there and act like you were a perfect child when you were a teenager. You were sitting there
No,
cursing and all this other stuff.
I wouldn't curse in front of my mom or my grandmother.
I don't think there's I don't know, but I don't see when I'm out and about, I don't see kids cursing in front of their parents like little kids or anything like that. I don't see them cursing. You
Oh,
may
they laugh at it. I see parents laugh at
like I
it like it's
said,
funny.
what
Like
you've
it's funny.
seen and I've seen two totally
Not
different things.
not in my generation, but in the
Right.
generation I'm seeing now, I
Mm-hmm.
see that they think it's funny. Like you see the things on
But
TikTok
here's the
and things like that. These
mhm,
videos, these young ladies, not young ladies, kids, girls dancing and dressing provocative.
mhm.
That's unheard of. You carry yourself as a lady all the time.
What do you mean? What do you mean that's unheard of? Because that's a form of imitation because that happened in the 90s. That you can't tell me that stuff didn't start happening in the
Oh, oh,
90s when you had the music videos and the girls in the booty shorts and everything like that.
and you see how much chaos that brought
Yeah.
and how much
But
turmoil went around when that started because that was not the norm.
hey, but you can't attribute that to us.
I didn't grow up in that era. I didn't grow up there. I was
You
already
didn't grow
grown.
up in
I
don't
was,
say you didn't grow up in that era.
I was
That
grown.
was peak
I
for
was
you.
grown. I was already
That was
grown
peak for
during
you.
that.
You can't sit there and say you didn't
I
grow up
was
in that
grown. I
era.
was a man. I was a man at that time. That's the new generation
That
that
wasn't
was
even
evolving.
houseway.
Hey, listen, listen. Okay, okay. I'm
Houseway.
gonna tell you my generation. I'll tell you my
Most of
generation.
us were 8 or
I'm gonna
9
tell you
years
my. I'm
old.
gonna tell you my generation. I'm gonna point something out to you.
Mm-hmm.
When I was growing up, we had a rotary, and then we got to a push button phone, and we had a cord that reached the whole length of the house as far as we could get it
Uh-huh.
to make calls.
Mm-hmm.
So it was no cell phones. It was no wireless at that time.
Right.
Eventually, we went to wireless. We had a long antenna and you
Right.
had a base,
Uh-huh.
but we still didn't have a cell phone.
Uh-huh.
We First thing we got was a beeper.
Right. That was in the 90s.
That, but I was grown then. I got a beeper when I was
I mean,
grown.
there's still other people in your division that were in that era. Still, you can't sit there and just count them all out. Just because you said you were grown doesn't mean you did delinquent stuff with your friends in the 90s.
I'm not saying I did everything right. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But the thing is, what I'm saying is the respect was there for our elders, and what they said mattered.
I think the respect honestly went out the window in the started going out the window in the 90s when you had all the group because people wanted to be cool and imitation is the best form of flattery. They wanted to imitate NWA and all those other hardcore groups that were coming out at that time. So that kind of ingrained in them, the people that were growing up in that, teenagers or young kids or whatever, I guess. I mean, I really don't remember any of that stuff. I remember the cartoons, but not any of the like music videos for the most part or anything like that.
So, what about the marriage
Mm,
and widows?
mm.
Where did that lose its end up in the gray area? Like, oh, I don't
I
have to
would
be
say,
married anymore.
I would say like 2010, like when my generation was finishing college or whatever the case may be. I think that's when all that started going out the window slowly. I think it's fully out the window now, but I think there was trickles of it in the 2010s, and then I also probably would attribute some of that to The pandemic. Honestly,
Oh man,
no, no, no.
everybody
Listen,
using the pandemic.
no, but listen,
Everybody.
listen, because you can't sit there and talk to people. You couldn't talk. You
Mhm.
couldn't have a social interaction with people, right? So that forced more people to be online, talk to people through dating apps, or
Back in the day, we didn't have that
I know you
interaction like
didn't.
that
I
either.
know you didn't. What do you mean?
It didn't cause chaos.
What are you talking about?
You got more interaction. You had the means to interact with
What
people
I'm saying
during
is
COVID that you had when I was growing up.
that's what I'm saying. It's not it's not a physical interaction. You're doing that with somebody online. So when you have people that are online and not able to talk to people, some people will take advantage of that because you get lonely, you get depressed, whatever the case may be. And then if you are someone that may be provocative or dressing provocatively, you get those people paying attention to you and giving you money because it's a parasocial relationship. They feel like they're actually talking to you and things like that, or whatever the case may be. So it did have an effect. That I think it had a major effect as far as people interacting with people because it shut a lot of that down. And then people that couldn't handle being indoors 24/7, they may have gotten depressed or they needed an outlet to feel like they needed to connect with somebody. So yes, it did have an effect on a lot of people in that
Okay,
sense.
okay. So let me give you the scenario that I grew up under.
Uh-huh.
You went as far as if somebody had a vehicle with, at that time when I was growing up, was your parent, and they had to go to work
Mm-hmm.
or to the grocery store and things like that. Or you went as far as your legs can take you,
Mm-hmm.
that you could get back in time before the street lights come on.
Right.
Or you got as far as your bike, a bicycle
Mm-hmm.
can take you and you get back home before the lights come on, the street
Mm-hmm.
lights come on. We had more access to communication, interaction with people during COVID with less limitation because you can travel, you can talk to somebody in another country
Right. You could talk
during
to
COVID.
somebody till you blue in the face, but can you physically go there and see them? Can you physically hang out and do all those other things?
So now they can do it. Everything is skyrocketing
Yeah.
to the left.
I mean, it's one of those things when you're pent up, or wait, you about to say something?
No, I'm just wondering.
Is this
You couldn't do it.
mm-hmm.
Now you can. So now something's wrong with you because you couldn't
What are you talking about?
before. Now you can.
No,
So
there's
now
nothing
you're
wrong
just
with it.
off the rails. Now you're off the rails
It's one of
now and
those
doing
it's
all
one of
kind
those
of
things
crazy
when you're
stuff.
people have different programming for their brains and things like that. Some people can't handle being indoors for X amount of time. So when the leash essentially gets taken off, you go buck wild. Same thing for kids going on spring break. You get all that pent up aggression and whatever it may be from college. It's the same concept. You do that, and then you finally get to have some freedom and go do what you want, and you do the wildest stuff. You can basically compare it to that. It's the same thing. It's just that
And
when that happened, it's a longer period of time instead of it being a couple months, whereas it is in college.
so this is the gray. This is the gray area because we had the same issues. And,
Mm-hmm.
and, and the thing about it, we didn't have TV 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
The channel shut down at 12 o'clock if you got that.
Well, I mean,
And you only had selective channels of television or interaction with the outside. So what I'm saying is you were limited to who you could interact with.
oh, don't act
You
like
had
no, no. Go ahead, because
no,
you.
yeah, no,
No,
I don't want you to
I'm
lose it.
just saying,
Go
you
ahead.
making it sound like we had unlimited access 24. No, absolutely not. No, we did not. Stuff got shut down. Stuff,
Like what?
TV, the games,
TV
going
did
out.
not get shut down.
I can go ask
So
10 of
you
my
telling me
friends.
people didn't
I can
watch
go ask 10
TV
of my friends right
during
now.
COVID?
You're talking about I'm talking about growing up. You're talking about you were talking about growing up, and
Right.
I'm comparing the same thing.
Oh, the TV shut down when we
Yeah,
went.
our TV
When I
was
was
shut
growing.
down too. Exactly.
When?
So you go so,
You had 20.
no, we did not. Don't even sit there and try to lie. You know we didn't. Because I know you did the same thing. Oh, it's 10 o'clock. Hey, get your butt in the bed.
Oh yeah.
Exactly. So
Well,
we don't
well,
have
that's
access to
parenting.
that.
That's parenting. That's different.
How's
It's
that
different.
different?
It's different because now
How is it different? I'm
it,
waiting. Tell me.
well, it's different because the TV really shut down
Mm-hmm.
at a certain time when I was growing up. You were told to shut it down
Most of
because
the
you were
time,
being parented.
most of the
That's
time,
part of parenting.
those television shows didn't really have anything after 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock or whatever the case may be,
That a little kid should be seeing.
depending on
If it
what
was
you
on, you didn't need to see
depending
it.
on what you were watching. Most of the channels were shut down after a certain amount of time. Because Nickelodeon, I can tell you right now, Nickelodeon shut down at like 9 o'clock, and then you had Nick at Night, where you had the older shows that were in your era and stuff like that. Kids ain't going, I'm going to bed. I'm not going to sit there and watch that. They shut it down. So, yes, we still had things that shut down. However, as the years progressed and we got into the early 2000s, things started to go 24/7 because they realized, hey, we can milk the viewership and things like that for people that may be up late at night and things like that. But before
I
2000,
I take it as they knew that people weren't parenting like they used to.
nah, I don't
They
think
don't
that was the
care.
case.
They don't mind people watch their kids watching TV until they fall asleep.
I don't think that was the
They
case,
don't
but
mind. You don't think so?
I don't think
Okay.
so. I don't think that was the case. Actually.
Okay. I'm gonna circle back because
Okay.
I really want to stress this. I want to figure out what's the difference in your generation compared to my generation when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to the marriage. The grandmothers and mothers were married,
Uh-huh.
widowed, and that's basically it. Either
Right.
they were married or widowed.
Okay.
What we got today?
I mean, you have women that want to pursue careers. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. That's just the way it is. They want to pursue careers. They
But
want
they're
to.
having kids
Huh?
out of wedlock.
I can't speak for everybody. I'm not a woman, so I can't speak for them. All I know is majority of them were trying to want to pursue careers.
But
They
what's
want
the
to.
mindset? So
I
the
am
mindset
not.
is
Oh,
career. It's career. The
it is a.
mindset has to be career.
I would guess. That's just. I'm just going off of what I see. Most of them that I've interacted with is they're focused on their career first, and then having kids and stuff like that later. Now, some of them may go to
Later,
some
they
of them.
having them.
Some of them may fall off the track and have kids early while they're trying to pursue their career. But most of them that I've interacted with were all about doing their career first and then having kids later. So they're not getting married at an early age because they felt as though it would interrupt their career.
Okay. The career is based on the concept of taking care of their family.
I don't know. Taking care of them or having money. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I honestly couldn't answer that. I can't answer that because I'm not. I'm not a. I'm
See,
not a
see,
woman.
yeah. I'm not trying to ask you to speak for women. I'm just wondering what the mindset, because maybe you're
I'm just.
in
I'm
that
going off of
generation,
experience. Yeah.
and I'm in a different generation where the father took care of the home, and it wasn't required of the mother
Mm-hmm.
to be the breadwinner for the home.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard other things where it's been said that, okay, this man has to make certain amount of money to deal with me.
Yeah.
because I make X amount of dollars.
Correct.
Okay. So the man, the man of the house, his money is for the house, everybody, their lifestyle. So the woman, her career, w- is that for
I would
the
assume it.
benefit of the man?
I would assume it's for her. I would assume it's for her. Like
So
it's
it's not
not.
necessary. That career is not really necessary to build a family.
I don't. Yeah, no, it's not. I mean, we all know this. Everybody knows it's not necessary to build a family. You can. I don't
That's
know.
what the grandmothers and mothers of the old live by.
Yeah, but
And they
the
raise
times are
their
not the
kids.
same. The times are not the same. You can't sit there and be stuck. I mean, things are not going to cost. A burger's not costing 5 cents. A burger's not costing you a nickel anymore, Jay. Like times have changed.
I'm not getting paid 25 cents an hour either.
That may be the case. However, there's a lot of things that have changed since then. You can't sit there and be like, "Oh, well, the grandma was in the house." This, that. Most of the parents, now, they moved
What's
away
that?
from. They moved away from their. They moved away from their parents, had kids, and maybe visited on holidays. Like it wasn't where the grandma was down the street or living in the house or anything like that. Like just going off of my experience, my we weren't near my grandmother. So I don't know what to tell you.
But you still had the values. Your mother dictate the values from her grandmother. She still had the values from the mothers
As
and it, before her.
okay.
See, where did the disconnect came where the mothers from back then
Mhm.
and compared to now? You got mothers, look, back then, mothers don't party, didn't party with their daughters.
Mhm.
That absolutely not. You could even be in the company of adults as a child, all growing up. Adults in one area, kids in another.
Mhm.
You can't even tell the one from the other. To me, now I might be looking at it wrong. Can you see the disconnect? I mean, is there a disconnect between the parent and the child, or is there just bind
Well,
in that gray area?
I'm gonna tell you this right now. I think it goes to that too many chefs in the kitchen. So now that we have more access to resources as far as like parenting and things like that, instead of relying on your instincts of what your parents may have taught you, you're looking at other resources because your child may have had. This is just a sub section of this. Like your child may have some kind of his emotional state. You have to recognize your child. You know what I'm saying? Like that whole thing where you have to pay attention to your, like, recognize what your child, like if your child has ADD or ADHD at like 6 or 7 stuff, you have to nurture them a certain way. You know what I mean? You know what I'm
Drug
talking
them,
about.
drug them, put
I
give them
guess if you
drugs.
want to go that route. But I'm saying like you have all these other resources that can diagnose how kids' behaviors are, and then what you need to do as a parent. So instead of you being the parent that, well, instead of being the parent of those rules and things that were taught to you, or I guess enforced on you when you were younger, you got to kind of skate around that. Well, you don't have to, but I think a lot of people are skating around that because it's not they feel as though it's not the same. It's not a one for one as it was back then because you have all these diagnoses, you know. It's just really, it's a really hard thing to explain, honestly. But I think that's where all that's coming from. There's just too many people trying to tell people how to raise their kids, and like the talk shows, You got people watching watching the talk shows. Oh, this is how you should raise your kid to be the best and da da da. And like, not it's not the same for everyone. There's just a lot of outside influence going on. I mean, you can sit there and make that face, but
That is ridiculous. But what you're saying is probably the logic they're using. If you know something works, and it's always worked, it's worked for generations, and then you're transitioning into this gray area, and you see everything fall apart. Sometimes you got to get back to the basics.
yeah, but it's
That
kind of
makes common sense.
it,
That makes common sense to me.
it kind of gets hard to get back into the basics when you forget what the basics are because you're influenced
But I'm
by
letting you know what the basics are.
you are letting me know and probably the people that are listening, but a majority of the people may have forgotten what the basics are. So hence why you still have that cycle continuing.
Tech, do you see? I see that as at my age, that what we did and my parents, grandparents, and that
Excuse me.
generation before me got it right.
I
I'm not
mean,
saying they're 100% right,
I would say
but
for what's going on in your time and you're in that era, yeah, I would say
so
I would agree with
what's
you.
going on this era
There's too
is it
much.
right?
There's too much going on in this. There's too much to even say what's going. There's too much. There's too much going on. There's too much going on, Jay. You know it, and I know it. I don't even have to say anything, and everybody out there already knows them. There's too much going on. There's too much going on for somebody to get it even 75% right.
But let's start at the root. The root is the home. It's
I
the
wouldn't
house.
necessarily.
It's that. Look, look, like you said, that
Mhm.
TV was running 24/7
Later
when you
on,
were now, but when
later on,
you were young,
eight.
when you were young,
The cartoons turned off at 9, and then I went to bed.
no, a different set of cartoons came on, but
What different
the
set of
TV,
cartoons?
you said Nickelodeon
I
went
said
to
Nick
some
at Night. I
other.
said Nick at Night. You know what Nick at Night is? The Andy
No,
Griffin Show, Dick Van
okay,
Dyke.
that's good stuff. That's good stuff.
So
So
you talking about?
that's
What are you talking about?
that's the wholesome stuff. That's the wholesome stuff.
This,
So
he's talking about other cartoons. I said no, Nick at Night.
you didn't want to see. You didn't want to see that.
As a kid, I thought it was boring. Why would I? As a
Okay,
9 or 10-year-old kid, why would I want to sit there and
but
watch
but
the Andy Griffin Show?
listen, we watched it.
Yeah, yeah, you watched it
We
because
we didn't turn out bad. I mean, look how we raised your generation. Hey, it didn't hurt us, but look what we're getting now. Look at what we're seeing out of uh, the grandparents of old compared to the grandparents of new. You can't even tell. The age has changed. There are grandmothers at 31 in your generation.
I, okay, that's
I
a
hey,
I
do the math.
that
I
no
I
because
saw
to
it
be
myself. I can I show you myself. I saw it
no, I
and I was
understand that,
shocked
but
to hear that.
that's another
There are
that's something else
mothers
to
out
talk about.
here at 12, 13, 14
Oh,
years
I
old.
believe that, but I'm just like, yeah, that's something else to that's something told. That's a whole
It's,
nother
that was unheard of
right.
in my generation. Unheard of. You had church. You had a church community. People went. They had spirituality. I don't care what. whatever, whoever they serve, but there was spirituality, there was accountability.
Okay. No, I'm just saying a lot of that stuff. What I feel as though it was forced. It was for.
Say it, say it, say
I
it. No,
feel like a lot of that stuff was forced in your generation, whereas now we had more of a choice as we got
you see
older.
what we get.
As we
You see
got
what
old,
we
as we
get.
got older, I'm not saying like more so in high school, we started having more of a choice of what we wanted to do compared to being forced to go to church and all that other stuff. Because we're not. I think.
Why do you think you were forced?
Why do I think I was forced?
Why do you think people were forced during that time to go
Because
to church?
they believed
Whatever
it was
religion.
the right thing to do. You had to get your spirituality or whatever the case may be, and that may not be for everybody. That was part of that. I think that is part of the when you get forced to do something. Don't you want to rebel? Do you not want to rebel when you get constantly forced to do something?
Probably, but the thing about it, you see, now I see the importance of it. You might not, you don't know what's right for you.
Mm-hmm.
As a child, you don't know what's right for you.
Right.
That's why it's my job to give you everything that you need to be a productive citizen in this world. That's what the grandparents and parents do of my generation before me.
Right. Okay. Now,
So force, you can call it force all you
oh, it was
want.
forced. You know it was forced. You can't sit there and say
It was part of the parenting process to get you to the point where you are today, a productive citizen
mm-hmm.
in this world. It's just part of it. Now you got, hey, the process now, how's it? It's choice, right? You don't have to go if you don't want to. What are we getting? What is the parent today?
What is the
What is
parent
the
today?
parent? I mean, what is the mother, the grandmother today like? What is that? I just explained to you what it is
Mm-hmm.
for my generation. Just surmise what is a grandparent today and mother today? Values, morals, all that.
Mm-hmm.
Give it to me. I'm waiting.
I've already talked about that. I've already said what it is.
Just
Like,
throw it
hey, I've
up.
already
Just
said what
throw
it
it
is.
up.
Like, it's all about their career, whatever they want to do. I don't know, Jay. Here's the thing. All I know is the stuff that you want to hang on to, that grasping for straws from your era and everything like that. That's out the window. I'm sorry, but you got to take a back seat now. We driving the bus. So with that being said, with that being said, I think as y'all got older and we got older as kids, you started realizing that you can't sit there and keep saying you have to do this, that, and the third, outside of things that were required, like homework or going to school, things like that. You gave us more choices. You gave us more choices because you knew if you kept locking us down, there was going to be a point where that rebellion would come. And you see that in some of these other kids in my generation that were just under that thumb. They never got a chance to be who they were or, develop as a person, where they don't talk to the parents anymore. They don't talk to their grandparents anymore. So y'all turn that light bulb on real quick. And you can see how that changed, because I know y'all were under that thumb from your grandma and your mom back in your era. And now that we had a little bit of choice, we can look back on it and say, oh dang, I actually had a chance to develop. Oh, I appreciate them letting me, even if it was a mistake, I got to make the mistake and learn from it. I appreciate them not sitting there having me under their thumb. I get to live. I get to be a person. I get to develop as a person. And I think that's the big distinction between your era and then the era where you guys started parenting us and letting us, develop into who we are now.
Oh, good. So listen.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have boundaries. It's a parent,
Oh, I
you
mean,
know,
yeah, that's fine.
grandmas and mothers and grandfathers and all that stuff. And that's their duty to raise you the best way, give you all the tools, right?
Right. But when you don't listen and they try to, and here, this goes into some of this, not saying this across the board, but when something gets explained to you, you don't listen, you're like, oh, this is best for you. I know what I'm doing. Then you have a problem.
Who has a problem?
I'm saying whoever's raising that kid, you sitting there, or that teenager, whatever the case may be. You're like, oh, the teenager trying to express something to you. Like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just a kid. It's like you're just gonna invalidate the kid's opinion and be like, okay, we're gonna keep going to keep doing this X, Y, and Z. Okay. And then you wonder why, and you wonder why your kid doesn't want to talk to you anymore. You're estranged. Your son and or daughter is estranged from you because you locked him down on that thumb. And you didn't want to listen to anything they had to say. I mean, you could
I see what you're saying, but I don't totally agree with that.
Mhm.
Uh, Society is tough,
Right.
and they knew it. They went through it. They went through it. Their parents went through
Mhm.
it. Probably the toughest thing that you could ever go through: segregation, slavery, and things like that. This stuff wasn't made up
Right.
overnight.
Hmm.
This stuff was survival techniques passed down,
Right.
and the respect was given to those who suffered through that.
Right. But you can't have that PTSD of those survival techniques. You got to augment the techniques to fit for the current time. You got to
So
just like
has it been augmented? Has it been
I mean,
augmented?
I just said earlier, you guys started giving us more choice. Like instead of you, it went pretty well so far for majority of us. I can't say for everybody, but I know I came out all right. I know my friends that I talked to came out all right.
I didn't say all. I'm just saying.
Then overall, then look. If you're saying a small percentage, then the majority of us came out all right. Then, hey, wouldn't you know? Wouldn't you know? We got the ability to choose, and we all came out okay. Maybe that small percentage didn't come out all right, but hey, I think 80%. I think 80% is pretty good. That's pretty much passing in college.
I don't see that. I don't see 80%.
Okay. Okay.
But you think it's 80%?
I think it's about 80%. That 20%, I can't say anything for them, but a majority of us, I think we came out all right. I think we got our head on straight.
So these mothers out here and grandparents
Mm-hmm.
partying with their
Yeah, that 20%.
they're the 20%.
Yeah, that 20%. Yeah.
So most of them don't.
Most of them don't.
Okay.
Like I said,
I just need to know
all
because I was seeing it differently. I was seeing it differently, but I
Mhm.
know it was never that.
Right.
That
Like
was never.
I can tell you right now, all my friends that I
It
knew,
was 100% not that.
mhm, that 20%, yeah.
Is right. It was
Uh,
never even a
I,
20%. It wasn't even a 20%. It was 100% doing what a grandmother, grandfather, dad, and mother's supposed to do.
right. But I can tell you right now, all my friends that I know
Mhm.
that when I went to college with, high school, whatever the case may be, married, kids, decent career. I don't know what their career is, but the decent career. They fit the book. And you know what? Their parents let them have that choice. They're part of that 80%. Thanks. We appreciate y'all. I guess that's what you wanted to hear. We appreciate you. I guess that's what you wanted to hear. See, you see that?
Hey, I hope I hear more of it.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing.
Hey, what you see? What you see?
Just walking down the street, guys got their underwear showing, things like that, and they don't care how old the person is or whatever. They don't care about thanking somebody. They don't greet each other. So hey, I guess the only people I see is the 20%. I don't
Yeah,
see that.
I mean, you got to think about where you at though. You got to think about where you at too. You got to think about where you're at too. You're gonna see a lot more of that where you're at, and you know this. You in that Mecca.
Don't leave nothing to the imagination.
You're in that. You're in that Mecca because I guarantee you come out here, you're not seeing that. You're not seeing that. Nope. You're in that Mecca. It's all about location, 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 location. You're gonna see that where you're at, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Probably Texas, California, New York, maybe, depending on what part of New York you go to. But yeah, you go to those major areas, yeah, you're gonna see that. You'll see a lot of that.
Thank you for your perspective. I need to know the young person's perspective because I just know what worked, and what I was seeing was that we're off from that mindset, and it's not working to me. But
Right.
I appreciate your insight. I
Yeah,
been
you're not gonna
informed.
sit there and say my generation across the board. No, that ain't it. That ain't it. Because if you're gonna say that, then that's a reflection on y'all, if anything. So you got to
No,
think
it's not.
about.
No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's
So
not.
you're gonna sit there and say that your parenting didn't have any. Okay. So you heard it here, everybody. You heard it here first. Jay just
No, it's not.
admitted that
No,
his
it's not.
generation
It's
had nothing to
tied.
do with us. So
It's
his
tied
the parenting went
It's
out the
all,
window. The morals went out the window. The grandma, the mom went out the window. You heard it all here first. He said that he had nothing to do with it. So his generation. Okay, I guess we just.
we tried to keep it
Uh huh.
intact,
Uh huh.
but the cries of the masses of the youth has said we need laws in place. We need things in place to say they don't have that kind of power over us. They can't
Huh.
force us to go to some spiritual enlightenment
It wasn't
for
even. There's not a law saying you can't do that. That was a well, maybe in some areas, but it wasn't a law here. That was more.
you can't use if needed capital punishment of spanking them on their
I
little
know
hiney.
that. I know that
When
you can get. I know that one, but I know parents should still do it. So I guess it just depends on where you're at. I knew that was a thing, but I don't think it's across the board. I have to look that one. I'd have to look up. I know the church one that's. I don't think that's a real thing. I think that's more of a you get a choice whether or not you go or not. But I know most of the parents make their if they are religious, you're going to church until probably you're a teenager, and then that's when the reins somewhat get loosened, depending. But anyway, but,
that's why
yeah,
I enjoyed the conversation. I'm just wondering about that perspective
yeah, that
because
20%.
20%. Okay, I think the number's higher than that, but
That
I'm gonna go
20%.
with
Yeah.
your stats.
Yeah, the number's only higher because of where you're at. We know this. But anyway, thank you for bringing up that topic. That topic. It was interesting trying to hear your perspective. But yeah,
That's right. I'm just showing you how it was in the old school.
yeah, in the
Work.
old school. I mean, you can still have the old school way, but you got to modify it for the new age.
The modification has got us where we're at today.
Yeah, that 20%. Yeah, you're right. Yep, absolutely. 20%. All my 80 percenters, go ahead and drop a comment because I know you're out there. All of us
Please
that,
do.
yeah,
Please
all
do.
of us that.
In my old schools, please let these young people know that look, you can't fix something that was already right in the first place. And the old school
It's not even
ways,
about fixing; it's about modifying. You got to modify it for the era. Things change.
yeah, the modifications that were made.
Mm-hmm.
Look what we got.
I mean, you still have the same thing. You gotta just tweak it a little bit. That's all. That's all it is.
So I just hope the institution of marriage gets modified back to being married.
Oh,
And
that's
having
not going to be a that's not going to be a that's not going to be a modified thing. That's not going to be a modified thing. That's a choice thing. That was a choice thing and a thing that was forced upon your generations and the generations before you. Hey, you have to do it. So
it worked.
You have to do it is the key word. But yeah, we'll see you all next week. You all take care. Have a great rest of your day. We're out of here. Peace.